Hey everyone, Zach here, and welcome to the 5th lesson in this Introduction to C++ tutorial series. First, I'd like to apologize for getting this video up late. This last week I have been feeling a bit unwell and I've had some issues with my recording equipment. I'd also like to congratulate you on getting through a lot of the basic material we needed to get through, and now we're going to be moving more towards understanding how our code is actually going to work. And we're going to bring up a lot more about Unreal because, again, this series is aimed at people who want to do C++ for video games using the Unreal Engine and who have no background in C++ whatsoever. So we'll be spending a little bit more time in the next few lessons looking at concepts that will relate directly to Unreal. That said, today we're going to just go over a quick review for things that we have already done and an introduction to control structures, some of which we've already looked at in the last couple of videos. So with regards to the basics of C++, congratulations, you guys have covered a vast majority of the things that you need to know. So, you've covered how to install an IDE and a compiler. You've looked at the structure of programs. You've learned your basic primitive variable types, and you've learned a few operators. The modulus or modus operator. You've learned plus and minus in terms of declarations. You've seen me use that as well with the example of room width and length. So you've learned a fair amount of the basics you need to know. And this gets us now into control structures and the flow of the program. So one of the things we need to talk about before we get into the idea of these control structures are statements, and compound statements and blocks. But don't panic. We've been using these from the very start. So a statement is simply a command telling the computer what to do, or in other words, what to execute. And statements are separated by a semicolon. See? Told you I've been using them the entire time. Now there are two types. There are simple statements and compound statements or blocks. A simple statement would be int x equals 10, semicolon. It's a simple one-line command with a semicolon. Our compound statements or blocks occur within our curly brackets. And these are a series of statements, so multiple semicolons, enclosed within that space. And we're going to look at examples of both of these for our if statements in the next few slides. So our control structures, or flow control structures, simply allow or tell the computer, give us a way to tell the computer, that is, what we want run by that computer, so what we want to execute, and what conditions need to be met, or under which circumstances. So this controls the flow of what part of your program gets executed by the computer. And there are a few types of these structures. We have conditional statements, so if and else if as an example. There are loops, so we've used this one already in the last two videos, the while loop. So we had while our answer wasn't equal to the random number the computer picked. We have for loops, and there are some other types we'll talk about as well. We have jumps, which include breaks, continues, go-tos. We have selective statements. This is a switch statement, and these are very similar to the if and else if statements. So there are a few things we need to consider when we're writing our programs. And some of these things might not be obvious, and some of them might relate purely to the program we're working with. So when we're thinking about Unreal, we need to consider where we use our loops. Loops in Unreal are very taxing. I remember when I first started out doing any sort of programming, everyone told me, oh, you're going to rely on loops a lot. And yes, you will have to use loops. The thing is, though, if you can avoid using a loop, in Unreal, do so. And the reason for this is loops are rendered between frames. So this will slow down the system. This will cause, a lot of lag potentially depending on how many loops you're running and what you're having them do. If they have to do a lot of calculations, this will drop the FPS drastically. And I've been doing some live streams where I've even demonstrated this to people. So be mindful of your loops and where you're placing them. The other thing to consider are the use of if statements versus switches. Now, this really does come down to style. I mean, yes, a switch, if used properly, can be more efficient than an if statement, but not to the point where I'd say, hey, you should use switch over if statements. I use both equally, depending on what I want it to do and how easy it is to write that code. So it is really down to style choices, but both are used, and I do recommend that people take a look at both closely to see which one fits their needs in that situation the best. Okay, so that said, let's talk about our if statements. So the way an if statement is structured is you have the word if, please note the casing, followed by a parentheses with a conditional statement in it, and then the statement you want executed. What this is a condition that gets evaluated. So that thing in the brackets gets evaluated. If this statement is true, then the associated statement afterwards will be executed. However, if the statement is false, then the computer will ignore the statement, and the program will continue on. Now, we also have else if statements, which gives us multiple options and multiple conditions that can be met. And we're going to look at an example of both of these. So let's start with our simple if statement. And I'm going to show you two ways to write the same statement. One will be a simple statement, and one will have a compound or block statement. So let's say I have declared and initialized a variable of integer known as bank balance. And again, I realize that bank balance probably should be a float, but we'll ignore that mistake. So I've initialized it, and then we say if bank balance is equal to or greater than $1 million, and I've already declared that the balance is 2 million, then it will post out on the console, wow, you have, insert whatever number is initialized or declared as the bank balance. That is a lot of money. All right, it's pretty simple, right? It's one line of command after the statement. Next, we could do it this way. We initialize it. We have the statement, if the balance is greater or equal to $1 million, then it will post out, wow, you have a, then it'll post out the value that's in that, it's declared, and then that's a lot of money. It's saying the same exact thing, except for I spread it across 3 lines. And, I might have other statements that go in there, if you only wanted to post the balance, then hey, that first version's fine. But if you wanted to have it say more, perhaps you're going to want to have things in brackets as well, or other things with it as well that would go in brackets. You might want it then to check for something else. You might want it then to post other things besides that one line. Now, let's look at the else if statement. So in the else if statement, as you can see, we have that initial condition. So if bank balance is equal to or greater than $1 million, we'll say, wow, you have a lot of money. But if they have a bank balance of less than 0, then it will say, you have no money. Your bank balance is negative. Wah, wah. Sorry, couldn't resist. And then anything else? Yay, you've got some money. Now, I want you to take a careful look at this. There is no problem with the code itself. If you plug this into a C++ compiler inside of a main function, it will run correctly. If you change the declaration of how much bank balance is, it will display any of those 3 outcomes. However, there is a logical, on the human side, mistake with this code. See if you can see what it is, and if you can, let me know down in the comments below. So to round out this week's lesson and to bring it together with the last 2 lessons, I'm going to give you a challenge. And given that you had to look up while loops to complete the last challenge, and now know a bit about if statements, we're going to combine the two to consolidate your understanding, to get some practice in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're not going to create a new project. We're actually going to update something we've already done. We're going to take that guessing game and we're going to add some new features. So the first thing we're going to do, now I'm going to describe this program in terms of what it should look like in the output. You run the program and the computer's going to go, hey, take a guess at a number between 1 and 10. So we need to pick a random number and we need to set a range. You can use 1 to 10, you can use 1 to 100. The range doesn't matter. What I want you to practice is getting the features right. So getting a random number to properly get in there. We covered that last week, by the way. Also, a bit of a hint for the challenge. Look at how I have things blocked in terms of where these little bullet points on the left are showing up. So the next thing we're going to have is the human's going to take a guess. Is it -2? The computer's going to go, hey, dum-dum, -2 is less than 1. Guess again. So just be mindful that I set the range of 1 to 10. So if you have a range of 0 to 10 or -1 to 9 for some reason, if you want to go for a really weird challenge on that, you need to be mindful that you're actually picking a number that's less than what's up there. So there's going to be, an if statement in here somewhere. And then the human might go, hey, then is it 13? And the computer's going to get, exacerbated, and go, hey, no, dum-dum, 13 is greater than 10. Guess again. So there are a couple things to note here. One, the computer is putting out the number in response, as we already know, but it's telling the user if it's less than or greater than the range that we've set. It is also allowing them to guess again. So, we're going to have a while statement and an if statement at the very least there. But let's add some more features in. What happens if they guess and their number is really far away? Let's say you have a range where if you're saying a guess between 1 and 100. We're going to leave the example as 10 for now, though. But if you're thinking at 1 to 100, they're way off. You might want to give them a bit of a hint. How far off are they? So what we'll do for that is say the human guesses 2. And the answer isn't anywhere near 2, and the computer will go, nope, the number is not 2. You're way off. Guess again. So we need some sort of check there to see what the number is and how far the guess is off for it to go, you're way off. And then they go, is the number 7? And the computer's going to respond, no, the number is not 7. You're nearly there, though. And then they go, is it 8? And the computer goes, yes, 8 is a correct answer. So these last 3 parts, we already know the correct answer, but we've seen that stuff before. But, you're way off versus you're not off. What I was using for this, given the idea of 1 to 10, was if you were within 3 digits, you were nearly there. If you were greater than 3 digits, you were way off. So that's an idea of how I'm going to show you how to do this code in the next lesson. And we'll go over that as most of the lesson in terms of breaking the code down and seeing how it works. That said, do remember that I always will gladly help people on my Discord channel go through this material. I'll gladly go through this material in comments. I'm here for you guys in any way you kind of need in terms of breaking this all down. So I really do like when you guys interact with me on that sort of stuff. So if you need anything, let me know there. As always, comments are much appreciated. It lets me know what works and what doesn't work. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. And make sure to hit that subscribe icon and the bell if you want notifications about when the next video is out. And I hope to see you guys in that next tutorial. And outside of that, as always, I hope that you have a wonderful day.